of Logie Discovers America, Chapter 13, Ew. Chapter 13 is found on page 104. Please get your books out and get ready to read along with me. Chapter 13, Logie Discovers America. It's an Andrade, a mouse. To be honest, it's a tiny mouse. To be more honest, a tiny dead mouse. Trapper has left a tiny dead mouse on Mrs. Pendergast's welcome mat. Mrs. Pendergast found it when she opened the door. Now Trapper is crouched on the mat next to the dead mouse. Her ears are forward, her tail is flicking. She is watching through the open door as Mrs. Pendergast runs around her apartment. Ah, mouse, horrible, howls Mrs. Pendergast. She rushes around the living room and through the kitchen with her hands in the air. Mouse, ah, mouse. Back in the living room again, she leaps onto the doily-covered sofa. Ew, ew. She hops up and down with each word. Edna, says Landlady Crisp, get down before you break a hip. Mice, squeals Mrs. Pendergast. Her finger shakes when she points to her welcome mat. Mice are nothing, I say. You should live in Bombay. In Bombay there are rats, big rats. Rats in Bombay are this big. I hold my hands far apart. Mrs. Pendergast has stopped screaming and hopping. She looks at me wide-eyed. In Bombay, I say, many people are Hindu. They do not believe in harming any animals, not even the big rats. So the rats have been given their very own city. Mrs. Pendergast begins to sweat. She takes a lacy handkerchief from her pocket and pats her forehead and her upper lip. Landlady Crisp puts a hand on my arm. Logie, she says. It's true, I say. The rats' city is in the center of Bombay. Really, it's just a big mound of dirt, but the rats have dug tunnels through it. They have built rooms, thousands of rooms for thousands of rats, and thousands of people to visit. It is fun to throw a scrap of food into Rat City. The rats swarm out of their holes. They growl and gnash their sharp teeth and tear. Ooh! Now, Edna, calm down, soothes Landlady Crisp. The boy is just telling a story. Yes, I say. And I'm trying to tell you that one little dead mouse is nothing. Thousands of rats. Ugh! It's nothing, I say. In Bombay, people visit the rats and nobody screams. Nobody climbs on the furniture. Enough, Logie. Landlady Crisp's words are snapping again. You are scaring Mrs. Pendergast. I did not mean to scare her, I say. I meant to unscare her. From on top of the sofa, Mrs. Pendergast points again at the dead mouse. Get it out of here, she whimpers. Take it away. All right, Edna, says Landlady Crisp. She picks the mouse up by its tail. Trapper springs at it. She hits it with her paws. The dead mouse swings back and forth, back and forth. Mrs. Pendergast screams again. I wish she would stop doing that. Landlady Crisp wraps the mouse body in newspaper and drops it into a trash can. There, all done, she says. She holds her hand out to Miss Pendergast. You can come down now, Edna. But Mrs. Pendergast digs her heels into the sofa cushions. How do I know they're all gone? How do I know there aren't mice behind my stove or in my curio cabinet or, she shudders, under my bed? This building does not have mice, I say. This building has a cat, and buildings that have cats do not have mice. Mrs. Pendergast ignores me. I just won't feel safe until you look, she says to Landlady Crisp. I insist you look everywhere. Landlady Crisp rests her head in her hands for a moment. I will help, I offer. But Landlady Crisp is not listening. I knew it, she said. She says more to herself than to me. Things that would have been easier if I'd just put out the mousetraps. She heaves a big sigh, then takes a flashlight from her tool belt and shines it behind Mrs. Pendergast's stove. She finds 2 pennies, a pot holder, and... What is that? I asked. Landlady Crisp is holding something brown and wrinkled. I knew it, Mrs. Pendergast shouts from her sofa. Mummified mouse. Mummified pork chop, replies Landlady Crisp. She drops it into the trash can too. Oh, says Mrs. Pendergast. She blushes. Now Landlady Crisp bends and shines her flashlight under the refrigerator. She finds a shriveled carrot, a piece of dried cheese, and... What stinks? Cried Mrs. Pendergast. I wrinkle my nose. Whatever it is, it must be rotten, I say. Whatever it is, it's been under that refrigerator a very long time. Landlady Crisp sniffs and her eyes start to water. That's not rotten food. And it's not coming from under the refrigerator, she cries. That's skunk.